So, whatever happened to everyone's all-time favorite, inconceivable modern fairy tale from 1987, The Princess Bride? Let's find out. Movies,
Music and monsters.
Hey, my friends, Dan Monroe here talking about movies, music, and monsters. Oh boy, my friends, The Princess Bride, and okay, I know what you're thinking. Dan has jumped the shark and is now doing chick flicks. No, not at all. This film is, to me, the perfect fairy tale, an incredible celebration of storytelling, a perfect script, with the perfect actors playing the perfect parts. I didn't personally see this film in the late 1980s when it came out. It was probably about 10 years after that I experienced The Princess Bride for the first time. An incredibly fun-loving film packed to the brim with kidnapped heroines, spectacular sword fights, and even the occasional friendly giant thrown in for good measure. So grab your rodent of unusual size, your chocolate-covered miracle pill with your favorite damsel in distress, and a bucket of stale popcorn, and let's dive in. Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. Now, before we get started, I have to tell you all how incredibly humbled and honored I am to have been asked to be a guest by the Carlisle Comic-Con in Pennsylvania this coming October. I gotta tell you guys, I've only been doing this YouTube thing for a little bit over a year now, and it's really still all a bit strange, the notoriety and all that, but things really seem to be taking off for our channel, and I just want to let all you guys know that no matter what happens in the future, I will never forget or stop reminding all of you why the channel even exists and is doing so well, and that, my friends, is because of you, so thank you. Without you, there would be none of this. The Princess Bride is more than a movie. It's a fairy tale, and fairy tales are very important because they're myths that contain morality tales, and that's the reason we still have fairy tales today, being read to us as kids and then reading those same stories to our kids, like The Princess Bride, which was originally a novel released in 1973 by American writer William Goldman, but getting this project from the page to the screen turned out to be almost inconceivable. American film director, producer, screenwriter, and actor Rob Reiner, yes, the meathead from All in the Family, and son of famous actor, comedian, director, and screenwriter Carl Reiner, was given a copy of Goldman's book as a gift from his dad and realized almost immediately that he wanted to make this story into a film. After his very successful release of Spinal Tap in 1984, and while he was working on a movie called The Sure Thing, Reiner told the executives at Paramount that he would like to do The Princess Bride next, and of course they said no. Why? Well, apparently several other studios had already attempted to bring this book to the big screen with absolutely zero success. In 1973, 20th Century Fox paid author William Goldman $500,000 for the film rights, with Richard Lester of A Hard Day's Night fame brought on to direct, but the head of production at Fox was fired, so that was pretty much the end of that, and Goldman subsequently bought back the film rights to the novel with his own money. Other directors, including Robert Redford, attempted to adapt the book over the years, and at one point, Christopher Reeve was interested in playing Wesley in one of these planned adaptations, but eventually Reiner gained the financial support from Norman Lear, who Reiner knew from All in the Family and who had also funded the production of Spinal Tap. So, along with 20th Century Fox, Reiner worked really closely with the author, William Goldman, to adapt the book finally into a Hollywood screenplay. Fun fact, William Goldman's daughters actually came up with the title of the book. It's a great story, let me explain.
No, there is too much.
Let me sum up. When he asked his daughters, "What would you like me to write a story about?" one daughter said, "A princess," and the other said, "A bride," so he simply put the two of them together. The cast of this film was absolutely inconceivable.
You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Cary Elwes, Mandy Patinkin, Chris Sarandon, Christopher Guest, Wallace Shawn, Robin Wright, Billy Crystal, Andre the Giant, Fred Savage, Carol Kane, Mel Smith, and everybody's favorite storytelling grandfather, Peter Falk. Rob Reiner always knew that Cary Elwes was the guy he wanted playing Wesley, and even though they did audition other actors, Reiner flew all the way out to West Berlin to meet with Cary, who had not only read the book in his childhood, but also heavily associated himself with the Wesley character, never believing he would ever have the actual opportunity to play the character on screen. You know, watching The Princess Bride has almost become a family tradition to so many people I know, and speaking of traditions, one of my favorite childhood memories was Dad getting out the old slide projector and throwing up all those pictures of the family outings, vacations, and holidays. Certainly a lot of fun back in the day, but you really don't need to go through all of that trouble these days with today's sponsor, Aura Frames. And again, I only promote products that I personally use, and this is a good one. I have one, my wife has one, and with all those hundreds and hundreds of photos on your phone just sitting there, well, do something fun with them with a unique, stylish digital picture frame from Aura Frames. And no, this is not the same kind of digital frame we had like 20 years ago. No way. These frames were named the #1 digital picture frame by Wirecutter, and for a very good reason. It's super easy to set up. Literally anyone can do it with tons of different frame options. And here's the best part, unlimited storage. All you need is the free Aura app and a Wi-Fi connection. You can literally upload as many photos and videos as you want any time of day, all day long, all year long. Super cool, super fun, and a great way to share your favorite memories. And right now, you can save on the perfect gift that keeps on giving by visiting auraframes.com, and for a limited time, you can get $20 off their best-selling Carver Mat frame with code DAN. So that's Aura, A-U-R-A, frames.com, promo code DAN, and do me a favor by mentioning this show at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. And now, back to The Princess Bride. A ton of different actresses were auditioned for the role of Buttercup, including Uma Thurman, Meg Ryan, Courtney Cox, and even Whoopi Goldberg, if you can believe that. And super cool, with only a week to go before filming, a beautiful young woman named Robin Wright was convinced to audition, who was only 19 years old at the time and working on a TV soap opera called Santa Barbara, was literally the last of about 500 actresses to be seen for this role. Hollywood rumor and legend states that Carrie Fisher was also seriously considered for the role of Buttercup, but for whatever reason, that obviously didn't work out. Apparently, Robin Wright and Cary Elwes, Buttercup and Wesley, had quite the real-life attraction for each other from the moment they first met on the set, which obviously really helped their on-screen performances shine through.
Wait a minute. Is this a kissing book?
Even though Danny DeVito was considered for the role of Vizzini, it was Wallace Shawn who got the part.
I am looking for Vizzini.
Expertly fitting in perfectly with Mandy Patinkin's portrayal of Inigo Montoya.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya.
You killed my father.
prepare to die.
Mandy Patinkin as Indigo Montoya has to be one of my favorite cinematic movie characters ever, and this is so touching. His father had passed away from cancer in 1972, so while playing this character, in his mind, he vowed that he was actually fighting against the cancer that killed his own father, similar to seeking revenge on the six-fingered man for killing his father in the film, something that Mandy to this day holds near and dear to his heart, Indigo Montoya being his favorite character in his entire career that he's ever played.
A line that I said, it's in the movie, and for me it's the most potent line in the whole film. And that line is, "I have been in the revenge business so long. Now that it's over, I do not know what to do with the rest of my life." I love that line because the purpose of revenge is completely worthless and pointless. And so that's the line I love from the movie.
Peter Falk as the incredibly lovable grandfather was just perfect casting. I love at the end of the movie when he stands up and puts on his jacket, he absent-mindedly fumbles, checking his pockets for who knows what. Okay. All right. Okay. Stopping and turning around at the door, all callbacks to his most famous role as Lieutenant Columbo. Even back in the early 1970s, William Goldman's first choice for Fezzik was always Andre the Giant, but his wrestling schedule left him completely unavailable for filming, so, and I'm not really sure I could see this, but maybe, who knows, Goldman's second choice was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who at the time was almost completely unknown. However, and maybe luckily, by the time The Princess Bride was actually greenlit by the studio, Schwarzenegger was just too much of a big-time movie star, and the studio just couldn't afford him. So, the World Wrestling Federation was contacted again to ask about Andre the Giant, and he still wasn't available, so the production team started looking at other really tall men like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Ferrigno, and even Liam Neeson, but none of them seemed quite right for the role. But luckily, Andre's schedule opened up, allowing him to take the role, even though Andre himself was more than a little concerned about all the dialogue in the film. And also the fact that he was in a tremendous amount of pain due to a physical condition that he had that sadly eventually led to his very early death. The pure love and admiration for Andre the Giant on set simply can't be understated. According to Rob Reiner, he had a real natural instinct for acting. He was always positive and uplifting to everyone in the cast and crew, despite the fact that he'd undergone a major back surgery just prior to filming. Listening to the other cast members talk about Andre is, to this day, I don't know, just extremely heartwarming.
Everybody rallied around him. We just loved him. I mean, he was so smart and so gentle and sweet.
I remember he used to put his hand on my head, and it would cover the back of my neck. His hand was so big, and it would keep me warm.
I loved Andre. He had this farm in North Carolina, and he said he loved walking with the animals because they don't look twice at him.
My favorite moment with him, Andre and I were on the boat alone with only the script supervisor. She turned to Andre and she said, have you enjoyed this experience? Has it been enjoyable for you? Has it been pleasurable for you? And he said, oh, yes. Nobody looks at me.
Now he rests in peace and dreams of large women.
Billy Crystal was just hilarious as Miracle Max, improvising a lot of his own lines right there on the set, and as a matter of fact, Rob Reiner would literally start filming a scene and then just walk off set because he just couldn't stop laughing enough to be able to stand there and direct the scene. Even Mandy Patinkin claims that the only injury that he ever sustained during the entire filming of this movie was a bruised rib due to having to hold in his laughter during his scenes with Billy Crystal, and you can actually really notice him holding back his laughter during his one line, "This is noble, sir."
Sure makes me want a nice MLT, mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich when the mutton is nice and lean and the tomato is ripe.
Robot, can you give it a rest?
It's possible. Pig.
Really?
As you wish.
Well, I love you too, and this is kinda cool. Miracle Max and Valerie were actually named after the parents of author William Goldman. Now, even though some of the scenes were shot on Hollywood sound stages, like the Cliffs of Insanity sword fight, the water tank with the shrieking eels, and some of the castle interiors, 90% of this film was literally shot outdoors or on location in both England and Ireland in late 1986. Fun fact, the Dread Pirate Roberts was actually a real person named Bartholomew Roberts, also known as Black Bart, often considered the most successful pirate of all time, operating in the Caribbean, or Caribbean, whichever, take your pick, in the early 18th century. One of my favorite scenes from any film ever made has to be the unbelievable sword fight at the top of the Cliffs of Insanity between Wesley and Indigo. Staggering to think that neither of these two actors had any prior instruction in fencing, yet literally every frame of film in that entire fight sequence was them, expertly trained by both Bob Anderson and Peter Diamond, both of whom worked on training the actors in the original Star Wars trilogy, spending more than 3 weeks prior to filming just learning to fence and even still rehearsing in between shots during actual production. They not only had to learn their own moves, but they also had to learn the moves of the other guy to avoid injury, and learned to fence both right-handed and left-handed.
You're using Bonetti's defense against me, eh?
I thought it fitting, considering the rocky terrain. And then there's the soundtrack. The musical score for this is so timeless. Composed by Mark Knopfler from the band Dire Straits, and the song Storybook Love was nominated for an Academy Award in 1988 for Best Original Song. The Princess Bride was released to theaters in 1987, premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival with a pretty low $16 million budget, and quite surprisingly did okay, bringing in just a little over $30 million at the box office, despite the fact that there was absolutely no promotion done for the film at all. The studio executives just didn't know how to promote it. They didn't know whether it was a comedy or a romance or a swashbuckling action adventure. I mean, come on, what a pain.
Life is pain. Anyone who says differently is selling something.
Rob Reiner was so pissed off that he actually called the studio executives on the phone, telling them, quite frankly, I don't want this to be another Wizard of Oz, meaning when The Wizard of Oz came out, it basically bombed and wasn't considered a classic until much later on, which coincidentally is exactly what did happen with The Princess Bride finally finding its place in cinematic pop culture through video rentals, DVDs, and Betamax, multiple other formats including VCD and Laserdisc, a special edition Criterion Laserdisc in 1997, DVD in 98 by MGM, a 2-disc DVD set, both the Dread Pirate and Buttercup editions in 2006, Blu-ray in 2009, and finally a gorgeous 4K Ultra HD version of The Princess Bride in 2023, and man, I gotta tell you, this thing looks just gorgeous. Okay, but where are all the super cool costumes and props from the film? Well, this is a pretty easy one because most of them all seem to be in exactly the same place, the Mopop Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, including Buttercup's dress, Buttercup's Fire Swamp dress, Indigo Montoya's entire outfit, and even the costume and glove of the Man in Black. And what about the incredibly famous swords? Well, they're there too. And what about all the reboots, remakes, and God help us reimaginings? Well, for once I can truly and honestly say there were none.
Thank God.
The Princess Bride is not only an extremely beloved part of our childhood and family memories, but also what I consider to be the perfect blend of swashbuckling adventure, romance, comedy, almost the perfect film all wrapped up in one, proudly taking its place among other fun and exciting Hollywood films like Willow, The Never-Ending Story, Once Upon a Time, Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal, Legend, Time Bandits, and so many more. We could be here all day, but that, my friends, is the topic of another video. I really hope you guys enjoyed that deep dive into The Princess Bride, and if you did and you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got a whole bunch of new stuff coming up really soon that I know you guys are just gonna dig. And please feel free to stop back anytime as we together continue the conversation on movies, music, and monsters.
Movies, music, and monsters.